Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and today I'm in a happy place. I'm at the wheel of a 156, an Alfa Romeo 156 2-litre twin spark for the first time in a while. But every time I do drive one of these things, it's a good day because these are absolutely fantastic cars, one of my all-time favourites. So let's have a word from our sponsor, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and on with the video. Furious Driving, presented by Diamond Bright, keeping the Furious fleet shining, and you can protect, clean and care for your car with 10% off site-wide using code FD10. Bidding Classics, the online marketplace for appreciating classic cars, with more cars added every week. And like Diamond Bright, Lancaster Insurance Services is a company I've been a happy customer of for quite some time. Lancaster are one of the biggest specialist insurers in the UK, covering all areas of vintage to modern classic car and motorbike. So give them a call and see if you can save on your cover. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and today I am actually kind of excited because I am about to go and drive one of my all-time favourite cars, and I don't say this lightly. Yeah, believe it or not, the Alfa Type 962, or 156 as you probably know it, is actually one of my favourite cars ever because, well, just look at it. This very morning, talking about something completely different, someone said to me, there are very few cars where you can look at them from any angle and there's not a single bad line on it. And this honestly is one of those, well, literally handful of cars that you can do that with. This is one of the prettiest cars I think I've ever seen and one of the best cars I've ever owned. And if anyone knows where GK55ZNT is today, I want it back. Right, let's take a look around this 156 and tell you all about it. Now, the 156 was designed by Walter da Silva, working out of Fiat Centro Stilo, and he did a genuinely amazing job. And the car was revealed to the world at Frankfurt in 1997, and honestly it wowed the world. Motoring journalists, car salesmen, everybody just wanted a piece of it. I remember the first time I saw one of these on the cover of Car magazine. I bought that magazine, I think I've still got it somewhere, because I just knew straight away then I wanted a 156 one day. Didn't matter how old I was, didn't matter what the cost was, that was the car I wanted. And that was the wow factor that Alfa Romeo needed. This thing replaced the 155, which was a good car, but it was never going to steal market share from BMW and Audi and Volkswagen and frankly anyone. It was great with those squared off haunches and square front and everything. I'd love one of those as well. But this was a pretty car that did everything so much better. The fit and finish, as we'll see in a second, just suddenly elevated Alfa to a whole new level. Because this was yet another make or break car for Alfa Romeo. This is the car that had to steal sales from the big German rivals. It had to do well. For the company to stay afloat, to keep going into the next century, it had to do well and just keep flying the Alfa Romeo badge and push it forward into the next generation. And it did that. Everything about this car just looks and feels years ahead of the previous generation, the 145, 146, 155. They're great cars, but they feel fragile and plasticky, whereas this feels, well, like a solid car that you can live with for a long time. In fact, I bought one of the very last ones in 2005, ran it for 5 years and over 150,000 miles, and nothing broke. And it was still, apart from slightly worn bushes at the front, still a great car. But let's talk about the styling first of all, because really that is what makes this car so special. Well, one of those things anyway. Now, a car's face is almost the most important part of it because it's what interacts with people and you form a bond with it. Look at things like the Minis and Beetles. They've got cute little faces and people adore them. Fiat 500s are the same. This has got kind of a slightly aggressive squint, but it's not off-puttingly aggressive. It makes you want to get in and drive the thing. You've got these interesting headlights which are shaped into the corners, shaped into the grille. They're squinting, they're concentrating, they're looking and thinking about going fast, which is what you want this car to do. Then you've got this grille, the Cuore Sportivo, the sporting heart, which in the style of classic Alfas of years gone by, cuts down right sharply into the bumper. It bisects the whole thing and means you've got to have the classic Alfa thing of the number plate over on the left-hand side. A brilliant Alfa trait. It's not practical, it's silly, but it makes it an Alfa and makes it fun. An Alfa without one is just like 3% less Alfa. Another really cool thing in the pressed steel is this crease in the bonnet, this swage line. There's actually two lines. One dips down here to this crease just here, then it comes up again, steps up across the centre with a tiny, tiny crease at the centre, and then it goes off and repeats. But this crease line up here flows all the way up the bonnet, past the A-post and into this beautifully sculpted wing mirror. On Vectras, that is the most exciting thing people can think to say about the car. That was a prime rival of this vehicle. On this car, there's so much else that's really, really cool and beautiful going on, you barely even notice it. And then we're into the side of the car and the details just keep on coming and coming and coming. First of all, we've got the teledial alloys. This is a feature of the Veloce model, which this particular one is. This is the sporty one. Not all the cars got that. There were different options, of course. The Veloce's also got these really cool side trims, which absolutely make it. I had the Lusso, which didn't have it. It didn't look quite as good without it, interestingly enough. But anyway, first of all, these mirrors, they've got a lovely little delicate crease in the center. They're tiny little ovals. They are beautiful. As mirrors go, they're a work of art. Not great to see out of, but look amazing. Then you have this swage line. It fades in from the front. It's very sharp across the wing, very sharp into the door, and then fades to nothing through the center of the car, then comes back in again to a very sharp crease down to the back of the car. It carries on into the top edge of the light, and we'll follow it around there in a second. But while we're here, we need to look at these amazing flanks, because below that, it's a less is more kind of situation, because although there's so much going on at the front and the back and everywhere else, these sides are just completely empty. It's just a blank canvas. Just lets you appreciate the curve of the side of the car and everything else. This is really nice, less is more kind of design. Then we have the door handles. Who'd have thought door handles would be a feature, but it's something else that's great on this car. On the front doors, we've got these amazing cast aluminium door handles with an old school push button. They're very retro and very effective. They feel so good when you walk up to the car. It's your first interaction with the thing when you're getting into it. You wrap your hand around it, you feel the cold metal, but it's also kind of a soft feel because it's aluminium. And you push the button, it feels almost like a classic car, but it's such a positive, modern feel, the way click and everything and the clunk when you shut the door. It feels very modern as well. It's very well executed. And likewise, these rear door handles, which are blended into the back of the window and the C-post. So it looks like the car, from a distance, is a two-door coupe. How cool is this? Your four-door saloon, your family car, gives the impression that everyone thinks you've got a two-door, and it just looks so good. These were synonymous with the 156. The 147 did it as well on the five-door models, but other cars have copied it numerously since. I think the Nissan Juke has got it. But they are forever known as 156 door handles. Now around the back of the car is where things quite often fall apart in terms of car design, because somewhere around the back the proportions will be a little bit off. The bottom of the buck bumper will be too far off the ground, revealing too much underskirt. It doesn't look right. The rear three-quarter angle is just a bit unresolved, but not this car. These lines just come in and sculpt around above the lights and then actually curve around the light and follow into the boot lid. Everything just resolves nicely. The rear of the car is actually neatly tapered like a speedboat. You have these almost slit-like, angry, squinting eye tail lights which look absolutely fantastic. And of course, your 156 logo down here in the Alfa Romeo font of the time. Unlike previous cars, the Alfa badge on the back doesn't actually rotate out the way to reveal a key slot, and you have to open it from inside or using the key fob. However, to physically open it, you have to get your finger into this little crease just here, which looks lovely, but isn't the most practical and is very dirty on a day like today. The spoiler on this one is an optional extra. It does look rather nice on this, I do think, especially in the lighter colour, the silver. And then the bumper also works really well. This cutout for the number plate is kind of a flipped upside down shape of the bottom of the boot. It's a nice mirroring, and you've got your reflectors down here. And I've seen other cars copying this little layout and style since the 156 came out. It was quite an influential car behind the scenes. Now, under the bonnet is another place where the 156 shone, because it had some amazing engines that really did set it apart from the crowd. Normally a 2 litre or 1.8 litre kind of Repmobile style car, it's got an engine that just moves you from place to place. These cars had an engine that sung. It really did have a heart in the front of the car. There were 3 4-cylinder petrol engines, and these are kind of the best of the range in a way. The 1.6 and 1.8 are very good, but this one, the 2 litre, is the absolute pinnacle of power versus weight versus economy. It's around 150, 155 horsepower depending on the year. There was also a 2.5 litre V6, and in the GTA version a 3.2. Although the 2.5 Busto does sound amazing and it looks so good when you lift the bonnet, the power to weight trade-off isn't really enough for the upset in the handling. Likewise the diesels, there's a 1.9 diesel which is frugal and useful but not sonorous, but there's also a 2.4 5-cylinder which sounds absolutely amazing. Initially it was a 10 valve, but after the 2003 facelift it became a 20 valve, 4 valves per cylinder, 20 valve, rated at 175 horsepower, but could be remapped up to around 200. It can actually be remapped quite a lot further, but the gearbox isn't quite up to taking it. And that 2.4, it is an absolute peach of an engine, but it does suffer from timing chain stretch, which is worth watching for. And the weight of it, again, like the V6, is a little much for the suspension in this thing. So the boot, open it with the latch by your driver's footwell or on the key fob. And in it goes, a bit heavier with that spoiler on it. It's a pretty good size for a regular saloon. The aperture is a little bit tight though, so you do have to kind of feed things in because the boot lip is very, very high. Because of these nice lights, the opening is quite narrow, and because it's a saloon, not a hatch, the glass comes in here, so you've really got to struggle a little bit with suitcases and the like. But it does go back a fairly long way, however the seats don't fold. So you've only got a little ski hatch to fold things through. It's also slightly compromised in the fact there's no actual handle to pull the boot shut again, so you do have to get your hand dirty a second time to close it once more. Interesting bit of trivia with these things, there was a sport wagon version as well. This is notable in that it's one of the few cars where the estate car actually had a smaller boot than the saloon. Okay, now let's look around the third thing which makes this car an incredible thing. The interior. First of all, we're going to go in with this beautiful door handle. Door opens wide, and typical Alfa Romeo, we've got a beautiful door. As in previous generations and some of the real high-end stuff that they've done, we've got this lovely diagonally stitched leather insert. That's above 4 electric windows, a proper metal door handle. This car's got the Bose audio upgrader. Look at I'll show you the price list on this car in a second. Tweeter up top, mid-range down low, and a not too large door pocket. This is actually a little issue with the car. There's not a lot of storage in it. Step inside out of the wind, and I'll quickly just talk you through the cost of this car. When it was new, this car cost £16,293 basic, plus VAT, that's £19,000. £25 delivery cost, metallic paint, Grigio sterling, £380. Xenon headlights on this particular one is 500 quid. The electric sunroof, which I hadn't even noticed, £700. Cruise control, £280. CD auto changer, £300. The winter pack, which I guess is heated something, I don't know what though, that's another 300 quid. They discounted them 1,003 for a new vehicle discount. The spoiler was £380 and tax 180. So someone drove out the dealership having paid £21,500 for this back in 2003. And this car actually came from Canterbury in Kent, so not far from where I am. And it was sold as a company car to British Marine Managers Limited. So now we know what it cost. Let's see what you got for your money. Well, first of all, it really is a very interesting dashboard. You can't miss these deeply cowled instruments hidden behind the steering wheel. The silver white dials with the orange needle and the black text looks absolutely fantastic. A little screen in between them, completely separate for a readout of other information. So the warning lights are largely separate. There's a few inserted in there as well. So lights and things are in there. But yeah, this feels like a racing car. It is absolutely amazing. Up top, that does give you quite a curiously sculpted dashboard up here. On the left-hand side, like on the 1, 4, 5 and 6, it does sweep away from you, giving a big passenger area, so it's nice to be in as a passenger. In the centre, you've got this raised dais for your information screen that gives you your clock, your MPG, other kind of computer information, and a little bit of ventilation out as well. It's also a handy tea shelf. You need someone to put your mug. That's your safest flat place for a cup of tea to live. Or you can put it balanced along with a chocolate bar. Actually, your Twix will fit quite neatly just here in between your two dials. Very handy consumer advice there. Well, there's a lot of ventilation going on because as well as the 3 or 4 big vents just there, we've got side vents going up to the windscreen, to the door just there, little eyeball vents that you can move around, which are very, very Italian in their look. You find these things in Lancias, Maseratis, all kinds of stuff of Italian origin over the decades. Very pretty, very Italian. In front of the driver, the steering wheel is another really lovely thing. It's typical 1990s leather wheel in that it's really beautiful feeling leather, but it's a hard wheel underneath that surface. And this one has got the perforated leather around the top and the outside, a grained leather in the inner rim, and we've got this lovely Alfa Romeo bit here with steering wheel controls, which despite being around for about 10 years or so at this point, was in not that many cars still. We do have a horn in the centre of this, so airbag and horn in the centre. That's a deep Italian pop, that's an espresso pop, which trust me is not something you want to experience. And also worth mentioning on the wheel are the spokes. It's a 3-spoke wheel, and each one has got a little kind of a sharp crease down the centre, so it kind of echoes the bodywork creases and the details on the outside here on the inside as well. Behind that wheel we have got our indicators and lights on the left-hand side, and our wipers on the right. Typical Italian, they go down to turn on, which counterintuitive. And behind that, our cruise control stalk. And really, really well hidden behind all of that, we've got our reset buttons for trip computer and brightness and stuff on the display. There are a few Alfa Romeo logos around. Got one in the centre of the rev counter, which redlines at 7,000 RPM, which is crazy high for a family car. Another one here in the centre of the steering wheel. I'm sure I've seen one somewhere else as well. Then moving back into the centre of the dashboard, we've got this driver facing, in the old BMW style, big centre section of the console. The 3 dials facing the driver is a really cool thing. Something they continued with the 159 as well. So you've got our benzina, not petrol, benzina gauge just there, clock in the centre, and water temperature, aqua temperature. These are really cool, really pretty. It's a feature. Everything in this car is a feature that just looks so good. Got our radio here in the centre, slightly misshapen, so it's no point stealing it, won't fit in anything else. Heating, ventilation, air conditioning, all underneath here. The 3 rubber rings with chrome fronts, and information shining through the centre of it. It's dual zone climate on this car, for crying out loud. Beneath which has lights, aircon on off, demist your front windscreen, demist your rear windscreen, info, reset buttons confusingly down here. Underneath all of this, a little chrome strip. Ashtray pops out violently, and a cubby hole just the right size for losing your phone in, which is quite cool. Behind which we have got our gearbox. On the petrols, it's a 5-speed manual. On the diesels, it's a 6-speed. There was the option of a 7-speed automated manual, which is troublesome at best. Then typical Italian random placement of things, wing mirror control down here in the centre, along with fog lights and traction control. This is all in kind of a fake shiny metal plastic stuff, which looks unconvincing, but we'll let it pass because the rest of the car is so very, very good. Big coin slot holder for parking change, such a big thing in the old days. Little pen slot, mechanical handbrake, which is cool. Nice leather armrest with some storage inside it. And then these seats. I mean, these seats are just amazing. So many 156s have given their lives so someone can have a fancy office chair. These are probably the most comfortable car chairs I've ever sat in. When I used to do really ridiculously long days in my 156, leaving at 4 in the morning, getting back at 10 at night and driving hundreds and hundreds of miles in a day, and the 156 was just the best place to be. This is black, which looks good with a Grigio Sterling exterior. Other colours were the amazing tan or beautiful red. They just did everything so well on this car, they really did. This is just a lovely, lovely place to be. Now, climbing into the back of the car, I've got a little handle just there. This car's actually got little blinds in it, so it looks almost like it's blacked out from a distance. In the back doors, we've got the same beautiful soft, this is the softest touch leather you will ever feel. If you put a leather jacket in this, you'd really think you'd made it. More nice metal door handles, a little tiny ashtray in the back because Italian. Big door pull, which is actually starting to feel a tiny bit sticky because that kind of early noughties, late 90s plastic rubbery finish goes kind of weird after a while. Electric windows, big speaker, Alfa Romeo name down on the kick plate. And we've got these incredible soft, this leather is so, so nice. I say this all the time, but Italian leather in cars is just the absolute best. Forget all the premium German stuff. If you want nice leather, get an Italian car. Got the armrest that pulls down and you've got your pass through to the boot just there. 3 headrests, 3 interestingly blue seat belts. Let's climb inside. We've even got air vents down here for the rear passengers. How nice is that? Stowage. Now it's a little bit tight on my head here because the seat post does wrap in quite tight. It's more a seating area for smaller people, kids perhaps. But otherwise the seat is so, so comfortable. There is a little indent for your head in the ceiling to give it more space. There's a courtesy light, very oval, very Rover 75. And an airbag in the C post as well. Airbags in the B post and A post as well. Quite a bit of safety going on. This is a nice car in terms of being happy and comfortable in. So now for my first drive in a 156 in quite a long time. Oh, that unmistakable T-Spark starter motor sound. It's just like nothing else, like choo choo choo. And then instantly purrs into that sharp burble. And this particular car has got a wizard exhaust on it, which is like an 800-pound exhaust pipe, which does change the sound of the engine. A bit more raspy, a bit louder. Does sound good. And instantly I'm back at home again. This just feels so, so good. It's a car that you instantly connect with, and it's so much fun to drive. Just straight away, I'm enjoying this way more than if I was in, I don't know, pretty much anything else. Even at 50 miles an hour, the posted limit, just pootling down these B roads, it feels like we're, I don't know, just having a great time. It's an old platform, surprisingly old platform. Underneath this car is a platform derived from the 155, which was derived from the Tipo. So effectively it's the same bones as my 145. However, the thing was really, really radically redeveloped over the years. So it's considered to be an all-new platform rather than still the old Tipo underneath. The suspension on this car is very clever, and it was considered a very advanced car in terms of technology, or mechanical technology, when it came out. It's got high mounting point double wishbones at the front. At the back it's got McPherson struts, but they've got telescopic vertical struts with coaxial spring, 2 unequal length transverse links and a longitudinal strut. And that means it's got passive rear wheel steer, so you can barrel into a corner and the thing just grips and sticks. And it does that Alfa thing where it does roll a bit and it floats and soaks over bumps, but at the same time it really sticks and gives you a proper sporty feel to the drive. Oh, it's so good. The gearbox is so light and snicky. The steering is just so perfectly weighted. The steering is just so sharp. The rack is incredibly short. It's like 2.5 turns lock to lock. You can drive it on a fingertip and it goes so accurately where you point it. You're basically driving a racing car because you can just turn the wheel with your elbows locked in position and do virtually a complete lock of the wheel. Oh, it's such a good car to be in. You can imagine how much fun I was having driving 35,000 miles a year in one of these things, down lots of B roads, and quite a few days ending up at racetracks. Got to do a fair few impromptu laps of things in my 156. It didn't really matter which engine you chose, it was always a rewarding drive. Obviously the bigger the engine, the faster it went. But even with the 1.6, it was still a great soundtrack. The economy and the performance are helped quite a lot by the fact it's got a drag coefficient of 0.31 CD, which is really very impressive. For again, let's not forget, this is a family saloon, a company car. But it feels like you're in something exotic. I was going to say something Italian. You're in something Italian. Something I'm noticing about this particular car, which is a pre-facelift original design, and I do love the original design. I think I prefer the look of the exterior of the original cars more than I prefer the facelift. But the driving seat, the position is very Alfa Romeo. Like in my 145, I'm sitting far too high in the car and it puts me in a slightly awkward position on the steering wheel. I'm sure the facelift car, mine was a 2005 55 plate, I'm sure I sat lower in it. The 16-valve variable valve timing JTS engines are based on the old twin spark and came in 2002. Now JTS stands for Jet Thrust Stoichiometric, which is a posh way of saying direct injection. In the 2-litre, these bump the power from 153 to 162 horsepower and the torque from 187 to 206 Newton meters. The T-Spark is perhaps the best of the bunch in terms of balance and economy because the weight of it just suits the chassis really well. The V6 and the 5-cylinder diesels in particular are particularly heavy in the nose of the car, and it can give you some slightly interesting handling. I mean, it's not terrible, but at the same time it can be a little surprising if you hit a corner fast and don't expect it to understeer quite as much as it definitely will do. One quite nice thing about this dashboard layout is the fact that the speedometer is so heavily cowled. It goes up to 160 miles an hour on the dial. The 2-litre goes up to about 135, give or take. It means your passengers don't know how fast you're going, so they say, "Are you really doing 30 miles an hour?" Yes, definitely 30. They can't argue. Now in Alfa Romeo terms, this was a huge success. It was their most popular car pretty much ever, and every dealer in the UK, and across Europe as well, apart from Germany, were selling out their allocations. Even overpriced they were selling out their allocations and could have sold way more, maybe double as many. So that was a big success for Alfa. In terms of general sales compared to everyone else, it was still pretty small beans. Audi or BMW would have considered it a major failing to get the kind of sales figures that Alfa got with the 156. However, for a company of their size and their expected sales targets, it was a monumental success. It was facelifted very lightly in 2002 and comprehensively in 2003 when it got a completely new front end with a sharper grille that foreshadowed how the next generation was going to look. It did look sharper and more modern, but for my money, I do kind of prefer the original look of the thing. So this was a car that brought fun and passion to the family car segment, because as good as a 3 Series is, and a 3 Series is good, don't get me wrong, it's nowhere near as fun as this. It doesn't set your heart alight the same way this does. This is just a really cool car, undeniably pretty, and a great thing to drive in a way that family cars so often fall short on. And that's 50. It's so rapid. Well, it's 0 to 60 in about 8 seconds. But it feels electrically fast. It's so cool. The only real limitation with these cars, the interior, as beautiful as it is not incredibly practical. There's not a huge amount of storage. The door pockets are pretty tiny. The little pocket down here is the best you get. There's a little tiny cubby just there. The glove box is fairly useless, and that door is curved all over the place, so there's no cup holders there. There's not a single cup holder anywhere in the car, which may not sound like a big deal, but if you're going long distances, it can become wearing. And if you're trying to sell a car in the company car business driver market, which a lot of these things are, that can be an issue, because where are you going to put your biros and maps and notepads and everything else? Well, thank you for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this drive out in the 156. This is a fabulous car and a really good example of the breed. This one's only got 66,000 miles on it. The owner absolutely loves it, and can you blame him? If you've enjoyed, oh, MGZT, lovely. If you've enjoyed this video, please, as always, hit like and subscribe, and join us again next time driving something completely different.